Hello and welcome to the second video in the linked list series. So in the previous one we had seen how we could create a linked list by adding each node one after another. Now in this video we are going to study the process of displaying the linked list. So displaying the linked list is essentially done through a step called traversal. So once the linked list is created like this, we can access each and every element of the linked list and we can do any kind of operation with them. So in this case we are going to see how to traverse through the linked list and display each element one after another. So for displaying the linked list, initially we will have to start from the first element. So first element, that is the head, that is identified by the head pointer. I've told you in my previous video that the first element is always identified by the head pointer, which points to the element at the very beginning. So as there is no concept of indexes inside a linked list, we use pointers to identify the last and the first nodes. So let us see the code. So we are using a temp pointer again, and we are storing the location of the head pointer inside temp. Now it says while temp is not equals to null. So as long as the temp pointer does not point to null, we are going to execute these two steps continuously. So we are going to print temp data. That means, let us say the temp pointer is pointing to the first node, that is the one that is identified by head. So when it will print temp data, it will print the contents of the first node, that is 15. Right? After printing the contents of the first node, the next step says temp equals to temp next. That means it will now shift to the second node. So all the nodes are linked to each other by using pointers. So you can see in the next step it says temp is equal to temp next. That means temp next, essentially the next part of a node points to the second element, that is the element that follows the previous one. So after this node there is another node containing 3 and its address is 3600, which is stored in the next part of the first node. So let us say temp is at the first node. So temp next will contain the address of the second node, which is 3600. So when we are writing temp equals to temp next, that means temp is now going to shift from the first node to the second node, that is the node identified by the memory address 3600. So temp is now going to move on to the second node. Here also, after moving to the second node, again the loop will reiterate. It will check whether temp is null or not. So temp is currently not null because it is pointing to the second node. Now it will once again print the data part of this node using this code, temp print temp arrow data. So it will now it will print 3. Previously it printed 15 when it was pointing to the previous node. Now it will print 3. Again it will move on to the following node. How it will move on to the following node? Using this command, this line which says temp equals to temp next. So now temp is pointing to the second node and the second node contains the address of the third node. So temp equals to temp next means temp will now go to the node identified by the memory address 4000. So temp will move from the second node to the third node, which is identified by the memory address 4000. Right? So here also it will print the data part of this node using temp data. So it will now print 17. Then it will move to the next node. Okay, the next node's memory address is 4400, which is stored over here. So temp next means the address of the next node, which is 4400. So the temp pointer is now going to move from this node to this node. Right? Here also it will execute the same steps once again. So temp is currently not null because temp is pointing to the address of the last node, which is 4400. So once it has printed 90, it will try to move again, but then it will encounter a problem. you see that after the last node there are no further nodes, so the next part or the pointer part of the last node contains null, so temp will now point to null. Okay, so when it will move to the next part, so when it will execute this line temp equals to temp next, so the value of temp will become null. So this loop will now stop because it says as long as the value of temp is not equal to null, it will execute. So as soon as when temp is at the last node, it will execute temp equals to temp next. That means it will move to the node identified by the address portion of the current node. So in the address portion of the current node, we have got null. So temp is now going to point to null. So null means we have reached the end of the list. So now it will stop. So it will print 15, 3, 17, 90, and then the value of temp will become null, and then it will stop. So this is essentially the traversal operation. So by traversing through the linked list, we can display the elements, we can modify each element, we can delete an element, or we can also add new elements. So a lot of things can be done by using this concept of traversal. So I hope you have liked this video. I'll see you all in my next video. Thank you.